So, if you're watching this, you're probably already in bed. Maybe the lights are off. Maybe you've got one eye half closed and you're just looking for something to keep your brain gently occupied while the rest of you winds down, which is exactly the right use for this kind of video. Welcome in. Tonight, or this evening, or whatever time it happens to be where you are, we're going to go through 100 Easter eggs, hidden details, callbacks, production tributes, and carefully placed little secrets buried inside The Walking Dead across all 11 of its seasons. 177 episodes in total, which is quite a lot of runtime to hide things inside, and the people making the show were genuinely good at it. There are Easter eggs in this series that took fans years to find. There are tribute walkers that went unnoticed for entire seasons. There are pieces of foreshadowing that were placed so far in advance of their payoff that most viewers had completely forgotten the setup by the time the punchline arrived. Some of what we'll cover tonight you've probably already heard of. The blue meth cameo is pretty well known at this point. The Jesse Pinkman reference, a few of the bigger foreshadowing moments, but there's a lot here that's genuinely obscure. And even on the famous ones, I want to take the time to actually sit with them properly, because the interesting part isn't always just the fact of the Easter egg, it's the context around it. Who put it there? Why it works? What it says about the people who made this show, and how much care they were quietly putting into something that could have easily coasted on its premise. We'll cover Greg Nicotero's tribute walkers, which are their own wonderful rabbit hole. We'll go through the foreshadowing that was seeded years before it paid off. We'll talk about the hidden comic book references, the AMC in-jokes, the production details, the celebrity cameos in the herd, the secrets inside the opening credits, all of it at an easy pace, section by section, nothing urgent, nowhere we need to be. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet and you're enjoying it, please do. It's completely free and it helps more than you'd think. That's enough of that. Let's get into it, starting at the very beginning. The pilot episode of The Walking Dead aired on Halloween night in 2010, and it set a precedent that the show would quietly maintain for the next 12 years, that there was always more going on than what you were watching. The writers, directors, and production team were hiding things from the very first frame. So let's start there. The first walker Rick Grimes ever encounters, not counting the little girl he shoots in the opening scene, is the one he finds in a park just after leaving the hospital. She's pulling herself along the ground on her arms because she has no lower body, just a torso and a head, reaching out at him from the grass. Rick approaches her, looks at her for a long moment and says, "I'm sorry this happened to you." And then he shoots her. It's one of the quietest, most human moments in the entire series. And for years she was just the bicycle girl, a nameless set piece to establish the world's emotional rules. Rick's compassion in that moment, his refusal to just look away and keep moving, tells you everything about who he is, or who he starts out as anyway. But here's the thing, she does have a name. Her name is Hannah. AMC released a set of webisodes in 2011 called Torn Apart, 6 short episodes written by John Esposito and directed by Greg Nicotero that tell the story of how Hannah ended up in that park. She was a single mother with 2 kids. The outbreak hit while she was picking them up from her ex-husband's house. She got bitten trying to protect them, kept her children moving as long as she could, and in the end, she sacrificed herself to a herd of walkers to give them time to run. The last shot of the webisodes is Hannah reanimating, badly decomposed, missing her lower half, and beginning to crawl toward a park. The park where Rick will find her, months later, and look at her for that long quiet moment before pulling the trigger. The Walker version of Hannah is played by Melissa Cowan. The living Hannah is played by Lily Birdsell. 2 different actresses, same person, the full arc of a life and a death told across 2 different productions. And Nicotero's KNB EFX group built the bicycle girl prosthetics so well that the prop ended up in the Smithsonian Institution's permanent collection. Rick never knew her name, neither did we, for a while, but she had one, and his insistence on returning to the park, going out of his way to give mercy to something that couldn't ask for it, tells you more about who Rick is than any of his early dialogue does. The show establishes its emotional vocabulary before a single word of the main story has been told. Here is a man who, even at the end of everything, looks at something broken and says, "I'm sorry this happened to you." That refusal to look away is the whole series in miniature. The name just makes it land harder when you find it. The spray-painted warning on the chained cafeteria doors in the pilot episode Hospital, "Don't open/dead inside," is one of the show's most iconic images. It's in the opening credits. It ended up on merchandise. You've seen it 100 times. What you might not have focused on is how closely it matches the original comic. Robert Kirkman's Walking Dead comic begins with the same image, the same doors, the same warning, the same chained handles with hands reaching through. The show didn't just adapt the feeling of that page, it reproduced the specific composition, the handwritten font, the frantic energy of someone scrawling a warning as things fell apart around them. And the Oath webisode series, another set of AMC supplementary shorts, later answered the question that the main series never bothered to address: who wrote it? A nurse named Karina. She was trying to protect the patients who were still alive in the hospital when the outbreak hit. She survived long enough to chain those doors and write that warning, and then she didn't survive much longer. For 11 seasons, casual viewers saw graffiti. If you went looking, you found a name. When Rick stumbles into his old neighborhood after leaving the hospital, Morgan and Dwayne have taken shelter in the house across the street from the Grimes home. Rick tells Morgan whose house it is. Fred and Cindy Drake, his neighbors. Fred and Cindy Drake never appear on screen. Their names in a sentence, nothing more. But they're pulled directly from the Walking Dead comic, where the Drakes are mentioned as background context for Rick's pre-apocalypse life. The kind of specific neighborhood detail that most shows wouldn't bother preserving. It's a small thing, but it tells you something about how seriously the production took the source material, even in the details that nobody would check. There's a reason the first episode of The Walking Dead feels the way it feels. The empty roads, the overturned cars, Rick wandering alone through the silence of a world that has stopped. The specific pacing of discovery, bodies then movement, then the understanding that the bodies are moving. Frank Darabont structured the pilot as a conscious echo of George Romero's Night of the Living Dead from 1968. Not a remake, not a direct adaptation, but the same emotional grammar. A man separated from civilization, the gradual revelation of how completely the world has changed. The specific horror of things that should be still moving. Robert Kirkman has been very open about this. He's written in the Walking Dead comics letters section that Romero's films are the true north of what he was trying to do. The show's pilot is, in a sense, the clearest possible statement of that inheritance. Here's where we come from. Here's the tradition we're working in. And Romero got his credit. More on that later when we get to the tribute walkers, but the whole series begins as a love letter to a filmmaker, even before a single Easter egg is deliberately hidden. When we first meet Carl Grimes, he's wearing a blue t-shirt with a cartoon dog on it. Easy to miss because Carl is a child and children wear cartoon t-shirts. Nothing unusual. Except the dog is Science Dog, a comic series that Robert Kirkman created and published through Image Comics alongside The Walking Dead. In the comics, Carl wears the same shirt. Kirkman put his other creation on his protagonist's kid, and then the show preserved that detail when it made the leap to television. It's a small wink, the kind of thing that rewards people who read the comics alongside watching the show, and it's one of several ways Kirkman quietly folded his other work into the background of this one. When Rick locks himself inside the military tank in the pilot, surrounded by walkers and running out of options, the voice that comes over the CB radio and talks him through an escape belongs to Glenn, the character who will become one of the most beloved in the series' history. What's interesting is that the line itself, "Hey dumbass, yeah, you in the tank, cozy in there?" was one of the things that convinced the production team to expand Glenn's role significantly. He was originally a more peripheral character in in the pilot's plans. That line, that tone, that immediately casual charm in the middle of an impossible situation changed things. And the tank itself is a deliberate visual reference to Dawn of the Dead, where overwhelmed National Guard soldiers and military vehicles appear in similar staging. In Romero's version, the military has already failed by the time the main story begins. The Walking Dead pilot puts Rick inside that failure, literally inside a military vehicle that represents everything that didn't work, as its starting point. Before Rick and Glenn escape the rooftop, Rick tosses the key to Merle Dixon's handcuffs to T-Dog. T-Dog drops the key down a drain. Merle is left on the roof. This is such a clean setup that it almost doesn't feel like an Easter egg. It feels like normal plotting. What it establishes, though, is clear enough. This is a show that introduces consequences and carries them through. Merle's time on that roof, what it costs him, what it does to his relationship with Daryl, what it does to the group dynamic for years, all of that traces back to a dropped key in a gutter in episode 2. The show trusted its own continuity. That trust was going to matter a lot as the series developed. The survivor camp in the quarry outside Atlanta in season 1 draws visual inspiration from the rooftop encampment scenes in Romero's Dawn of the Dead. In that film, survivors improvise a livable space above the chaos, a temporary pocket of order suspended above an overwhelmed world. The Walking Dead's quarry camp is the same idea, a fragile pocket of normalcy at the edge of something that wants to swallow it. Nicotero has acknowledged the visual debt to Dawn in the show's production design. The specific framing of walkers pressing against the boundaries of the camp, visible from a distance, always present, never quite breaking through until they do, is something that Romero established as a formal grammar and the show inherited as its own. When Rick first hears his family's voices over the camp CB radio in the pilot, still in Atlanta, still separated, not yet knowing if they're alive, Shane and Laurie are shown in the camp having a warm, domestic moment with Carl. Rick doesn't recognize Shane's voice through the static. He doesn't get through. The connection is missed. On a first watch, this is just tension. On a rewatch, knowing everything about Shane and Laurie's relationship, the warmth between them in those early camp scenes reads completely differently. The show planted the full weight of that betrayal from the beginning and trusted viewers to come back to it later. And some people do. It's the kind of thing that makes rewatching the early seasons feel like reading a book for the second time. All the foreshadowing you missed, sitting right there in plain view. In season 2, when T-Dog's arm gets badly infected and Daryl needs to find medicine, he goes through Merle's stash on his motorcycle. He reads off a list of narcotics. It's a lot. Merle, apparently, was a walking pharmacy, and in that bag, clearly visible, is a bag of blue crystalline meth, the exact same distinctive shade of blue as the product Walter White manufactures in Breaking Bad. This was intentional. Both shows were on AMC at the time. Breaking Bad was in its 4th season when this aired, and it was a quiet in-joke between productions. Nobody announced it. It was just there, for people to find. Glenn steals a red Dodge Charger in season 1 to use as a decoy in Atlanta. He peels through the city with the radio blaring, drawing walkers away from the group. Fans of both shows noticed that in season 4 of Breaking Bad, Walter White buys his son Flynn an almost identical red Dodge Charger. Same model, same colour, same general era of the car. Whether this was coordinated between productions, or whether AMC just let a coincidence become legend, nobody has officially confirmed it either way. Given Egg 10 though, the circumstantial case is fairly strong that someone in production was paying attention. The two shows were AMC's signature dramas in that era, and the overlap in their audiences was enormous. A few shared props feel less like coincidence and more like a conversation. In season 2, when Andrea and Shane go out searching for Sophia, they're moving through a gated neighbourhood. That neighbourhood is Wiltshire Estates, a specific location from the Walking Dead comics, where an early group of survivors attempts to shelter and is devastated by a large walker presence. The events in the show at Wiltshire Estates are different from the comic. The show's Sophia story plays out differently from any of the comic's events, but the name is there. It's the kind of detail that rewards comic readers without excluding anyone else. If you know, you know. If you don't, it's just a neighbourhood name. And it's a quiet acknowledgement that the writers were tracking the geography of Kirkman's world, even when they were telling a different story inside it. One more thing about the pilot's relationship with Morgan Jones that deserves its own space. When Rick and Morgan meet, they are essentially the same person at different points on the same journey. Rick has just woken up. He doesn't know what the world is yet. Morgan knows, he's been living in it, and he is already showing what that knowledge costs. Morgan is what Rick might become if circumstances were slightly different. A man still alive, still functional, still loving his son, but fundamentally broken by something he couldn't prevent and couldn't do. The death of his wife, the walker he sees through the window and cannot shoot, is the wound the pilot exposes and then leaves open. He can protect Dwayne, he cannot kill Jenny. Rick, by the end of the pilot, has killed the bicycle girl. He returned to the park specifically to give her mercy. He chose not to look away. The show sets up this contrast in its first episode between two men who love their families equally and make different choices about what they can bear to do. That contrast runs through the entire series in various forms. Morgan comes back twice. His arc and Rick's arc orbit each other. The pilot planted the dynamic with complete clarity, and the show had 11 seasons to work out its implications, adding a bit more to the Shane and Laurie observation, because it's worth dwelling on. In Season 1, when Shane is shown at the quarry camp being protective, attentive, warm with Laurie and Carl, that reads as a good man, holding a community together in a crisis. He's doing Rick's job because Rick isn't there. He stepped up. He loves the family. By Season 2, the show reveals that this warmth is partly genuine and partly the way love becomes possession, becomes something dangerous when it isn't what the other person wants. Shane's arc is one of the show's most carefully observed portrayals of how a person who starts with real feeling can slowly become a threat. And the seeds of that arc are in the Season 1 warmth. The show knew what it was building, and it let the warmth be real so that the turn would mean something. Now, talking a bit about the opening credits, because the show was hiding things in there too, and it's the kind of thing that only becomes visible once you know to look for it. If you line up the Walking Dead opening title cards from Season 1 through Season 11 and compare them in sequence, and fans have done this, documented it, made side-by-side videos, the lettering in the title progressively decays. In Season 1, the letters have some corrosion, but retain their shape. By the middle seasons, they're more damaged, more weathered. By Season 11, they're almost falling apart. This was intentional and maintained across the entire run of the show. The world is dying, the characters are dying, the civilization the show is set in is dying, and even the title of the show is dying alongside it. It's one of those details where the craft of it is genuinely impressive. Someone made a decision in Season 1 about how the title would look, and someone maintained that trajectory all the way through Season 11. That's 11 years of consistent intention in a piece of graphic design that most viewers look at for 5 seconds before skipping. Related to the above, Fear the Walking Dead, the companion series that began in 2015 and follows a different group of survivors on the West Coast, has a title card that starts clean, fresh, barely any damage at all, because Fear begins at the very start of the outbreak. The world hasn't had time to fall apart yet. The title reflects that. And then, as Fear's seasons progress, its title also begins to decay. The deterioration tracks the show's own timeline. It's a visual shorthand for exactly how far into the apocalypse any given story takes place. In the season, 10 opening credits, if you pause at the right moment, the phrase "Silence the Whisperers" is visible, written in graffiti, on a wall during the title sequence. This references the Whisperers arc, the show's central conflict in Season 10, and the phrase itself is graffiti that appears in the actual show. Written by Alexandrians, who are terrified of the Whisperers and trying to organise against them. Having it appear in the credits means it's already embedded in the world before the season even starts. The Walking Dead credits were always worth pausing on. Hidden messages, visual Easter eggs, small pieces of information that informed what the season would be about. It became something fans actively screen-grabbed and analysed in the years when the show had that kind of engaged fan base. This one is softer, I want to be upfront about that, but it's been widely documented by fans and it's interesting enough to include. In the opening credits, the imagery placed next to certain cast members' names has, on more than one occasion, seemed to preview how those characters would eventually die. Sarah Wayne Callies, who played Laurie, and Laurie Holden, who played Andrea, are the most cited examples. The specific visual elements near their names in certain seasons have been read as foreshadowing the manner and circumstances of their deaths. The production team has never officially confirmed this. It could be intentional. It could be coincidence amplified by pattern seeking. It could be somewhere in between, someone having a quiet bit of fun with the imagery, knowing that the most devoted viewers would eventually start looking. I don't know. But I find it interesting that people looked and found something that held up. And here's a fun corner of the show's history: the relationship between The Walking Dead and Breaking Bad, which were, for a time, the two biggest dramas on the same network, airing in the same era, with enormous audience overlap. The production teams were very much aware of each other, and occasionally they showed it. The blue meth in Merle's drug bag, mentioned in Section 1, deserves the full treatment because it's been confirmed as intentional and it's more specific than it might first appear. The episode is Bloodletting, Season 2, Episode 2. T-Dog has a badly infected wound on his arm and the group doesn't have adequate medicine. Daryl goes through Merle's things on his motorcycle, a bag of drugs that Merle had apparently been carrying since before the outbreak, and starts reading off the contents. The camera gives the bag a proper look, and in the bag, alongside the various pills and powders, there is a clear bag of blue crystalline meth that is, in shade and presentation, unmistakably the same product that Walter White manufactures in Breaking Bad. This was deliberate. AMC, in that period, was quite happy to have its two prestige dramas acknowledge each other in small ways. The blue colouring was specific enough. It wasn't just meth, it was that meth, that it couldn't be coincidence. It's a quick moment, easy to miss if you're watching at normal pace. But for viewers who watched both shows, which was a substantial overlap, it's a small gift. In Season 4, there's a conversation between Daryl and Beth in the episode Still, the one where they're trapped in a house together after the prison falls and they spend most of the episode just talking. It's one of the better character episodes of that era. At one point, Daryl talks about Merle's old drug dealer from back home. He describes him as a scrawny white guy who used to say, "I'm gonna kill you bitch," all the time. That's never confirmed as Jesse Pinkman. It doesn't need to be. Breaking Bad was airing its final season in 2013, which is exactly when this episode was made. Jesse Pinkman is famously a scrawny white guy who says bitch constantly. The overlap is complete enough that it's either a reference or the most plausible accidental description of another AMC character in television history. And given Egg 17, I know which way I lean. Glenn's Season 1. Dodge Charger and Flynn White's Season 4. Dodge Charger are worth dwelling on for a moment, not just as a potential Easter egg, but as a reflection of how these shows use the same object differently. Glenn uses the car as a sacrifice, a distraction, something loud and conspicuous sent into danger while the people he cares about slip away to safety. Flynn's Charger is a gift from a father trying to buy his son's approval with money earned from terrible things. The same car. Two completely different stories about what it means to use something up in service of someone else. Whether that parallel was intentional or not, it's a nice one. Daryl Dixon smokes a lot, and the brand he's most consistently seen with is Morley, a fictional cigarette brand that has appeared across a remarkable number of television shows and films as a generic cigarette substitute, presumably because it sidesteps advertising regulations around real tobacco brands. The most famous Morley smoker is the cigarette-smoking man from The X-Files, C.G.B. Spender, the show's central conspiracy villain, defined in part by his chain smoking of Morley's. The brand appeared in The X-Files across its entire run and became strongly associated with the character. Whether Daryl's Morleys are a deliberate X-Files nod or just standard prop house practice is genuinely unclear. Morleys show up in dozens of productions, but the X-Files connection is real, and for a certain generation of viewers, the kind who were watching X-Files in the 90s and then Walking Dead in the 2000s, it registers. In Season 6, there's a character named Eastman who becomes important to Morgan's arc. He's a former forensic psychiatrist who's been surviving alone in a cabin, practicing a philosophy of non-violence, and who teaches Morgan Aikido as a way back from the edge. His name is Eastman, and he wears in one of his scenes a shirt that reads, "Save the Terrapins." Terrapins are a type of turtle, and one episode earlier, Enid, the teenage survivor, is shown killing and eating a turtle in the woods to avoid starvation. Here's the fun part. Kevin Eastman is the co-creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The character Eastman is named after him. He's wearing a shirt to save turtles, and the episode is immediately preceded by someone eating a turtle. It's a layered bit of production humour, the kind that probably made exactly one writer's room very pleased with itself. Since we're on the topic of the show's relationship with its source material, there are a handful of places where Robert Kirkman, the creator of the Walking Dead comic, quietly folded his own work and his own identity into the show's background. Some of these are very deliberate, some are softer. All of them are worth knowing about if you're a fan of the comics. Science Dog is a comic series that Kirkman created and published through Image Comics at the same time as The Walking Dead. It's about a dog with superpowers, cheerful, energetic, designed for a younger readership than the bleaker stuff Kirkman was doing with the zombie book. In The Walking Dead comics, Kirkman put a Science Dog t-shirt on young Carl from the very beginning. It's Carl's most recognizable item of clothing in the early issues, a detail that humanizes him quickly. Here is a child who existed before all of this, who had preferences and enthusiasms and a favorite cartoon. When the show adapted the comic, that shirt came with it. It's the kind of thing that makes a fictional world feel like it was made by a real person who has a life outside the work. Kirkman snuck his other comic into this one, twice, first in print, then on screen. In Season 5's Remember, when Rick's group is first integrating into Alexandria, the production design team filled the homes with details that made the community feel lived in. Books on shelves, personal items, things that people had held onto from before. One of those items visible in a home is a copy of Invincible, Kirkman's other flagship series from Image Comics. Invincible is a superhero comic that ran for nearly 15 years and has recently been adapted as an animated series for Amazon. In the comic's internal canon, Invincible and The Walking Dead technically share a universe. Characters have crossed over between the two series. Finding Invincible sitting on a shelf in the zombie apocalypse is Kirkman hiding his other book inside this one, and it's also a quiet suggestion that in this universe, someone was reading superhero comics before everything fell apart. Which feels right, honestly. This one is possibly my favourite piece of foreshadowing in the entire series, and it starts in the very first season. In the Season 1 finale, Rick's group arrives at the CDC, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention in Atlanta. The last scientist still working there, Dr. Jenner, eventually lets them in. Rick is overcome. He's desperate, grateful, terrified. He tells Jenner how much it means that he opened the door. Jenner's reply is quiet and a bit ominous. The day will come when you won't be. At the time it reads as dark ambiguity, a warning about the harshness ahead. A scientist who has looked at the data and lost hope. It registers as foreboding and moves on. 6 years later, Season 7 premiered, the episode where Negan introduces himself to Rick's group and murders 2 people in front of them. The episode where Rick is broken, systematically and deliberately, by a man who wants him to understand that there is no hope. That episode is titled, "The Day Will Come When You Won't Be." A throwaway line from Season 1, delivered as a farewell from a dying man, became the title of the most devastating episode the show ever produced. Someone remembered. Someone saved it for the right moment. When the group finds the prison in Season 3, the production design team did something unusual. They built it to closely match the visual geography of Kirkman's original artwork. The exterior establishing shots, the C block as the survivors' primary living space, the yard layout, the watchtower positioning, all of it is closely adapted from the comics, with an unusually high degree of fidelity. Most TV adaptations use source material as a rough guide and make substantial changes for practical or narrative reasons. The Walking Dead did that in plenty of places. But the prison is one of the places where the show looked at what Kirkman drew and said, essentially, let's build that build. For readers who knew the comic, walking into the prison for the first time in Season 3 was a strange and specific pleasure, like seeing a place you'd only imagined actually rendered in 3 dimensions. A small additional note here, the specific detail the show preserved most carefully was the emotional geography of the cell block. In Kirkman's comics, the survivors personalize their cells. They accumulate small objects, hang things on the walls, make domestic decisions about a space that was designed for punishment. The privacy of a cell, after months of being exposed in outdoor camps and strangers' houses, becomes valuable in a way that feels counterintuitive until you think about it. The show translated this. The Season 3 scenes where the survivors are cleaning cells, choosing which ones to use, making them theirs. That domestication of an institutional space is one of the most faithful adaptations of what the comics were doing emotionally, even as the narrative details around it diverge. The feeling of it is right. The specific human logic of it is right. In the Walking Dead comics, Rick Grimes loses his right hand. The governor cuts it off in the prison arc. This happens fairly early in the series and is a defining physical characteristic of the character for everything that follows. The prosthetic, the limitation, the adaptation. The show never did it. Partly for practical reasons, it's extremely expensive to digitally remove an actor's hand in every shot for the remainder of an 11-season run. But the hand also became something else on television. Symbolic real estate. Rick's hand is the hand that holds Carl, the hand that shakes agreements, the hand that reaches for Michonne, the hand that almost holds the gun to his own head in Season 1 and doesn't. The show found more meaning in keeping the hand than the comics could have by removing it. But the comics detail wasn't forgotten. In The Ones Who Live, the 2024 miniseries, the question of Rick's hand re-enters the story in a way that acknowledges the comics version without directly replicating it. The writers knew it was there. They brought it back in their own time. Fans have documented multiple instances of Robert Kirkman's name appearing in background props across different seasons. Gravestones, signs, environmental details that reward very close, pausing and squinting. This one is harder to verify definitively, but it's been documented often enough by the fan community to be worth mentioning. It's a common practice in adapted productions, the original creator getting hidden tributes buried in the world of the adaptation. Given that Kirkman was consistently involved in the show's production, it would be strange if this weren't happening at some level. The Season 2 arc of Sophia going missing, the extended painful search that takes up most of the season, doesn't directly replicate anything in the comics. In the comics, Sophia's fate is different and comes much later, but the emotional function is the same. Both the comic and the show use the loss of a vulnerable child as a device for examining how the group makes collective decisions under pressure. Who leads? Who follows? What the cost of hope is when the situation is actually hopeless. Both versions ask whether it's kinder to keep searching or to accept the truth. The show arrived at a different answer than the comic in a different way, but they were both asking the same question, and for comic readers watching Season 2, that parallel was audible even through the divergence. Now let's talk about Greg Nicotero, because once you understand who he is and what he was doing across the show's run, an entire layer of The Walking Dead becomes visible that most casual viewers never noticed at all. This is probably my favourite corner of the whole subject, honestly. It's the section that I find myself coming back to. Greg Nicotero is the executive producer, special effects supervisor, and frequent director on The Walking Dead. He's been with the show from the beginning, and his fingerprints are on more of it than most viewers realise. He's responsible for how the walkers look, how they move, how they're built. He's also responsible for a remarkable number of the show's best directed episodes. The bottle episodes, the quiet ones, the ones that live and die on atmosphere and composition. But here's the relevant background. Nicotero started his career in his early 20s working for Tom Savini on George Romero's Day of the Dead in 1985. Tom Savini is one of the great makeup effects artists in horror film history. He's responsible for the effects in the original Friday the 13th, the original Dawn of the Dead, Martin, Creepshow, and Romero is the man who essentially invented the modern zombie film. Nicotero was mentored by both of them, directly. Since then, he's worked on Halloween, Friday the 13th, Scream, Kill Bill, Sin City, The Stand, dozens of other genre productions. He's one of the most significant practical effects artists working in Hollywood, and has been for 30 years. On The Walking Dead, Nicotero uses his directorial episodes to hide what he calls tribute walkers, background undead that are specifically designed to look like iconic zombies, monsters, or characters from classic horror films. He said in interviews, "I want the fans to be like, look, that was that zombie from that movie." Some of these are confirmed explicitly. Some are fan-identified and subsequently confirmed. Some are just clearly, undeniably, specifically someone from somewhere. And taken together, they represent something genuinely touching. A man who became great at his craft because he loved horror films, hiding his love of those films inside the biggest horror show ever made. Let's go through them. Let's start with the most personal one. Day of the Dead, 1985, is the third entry in Romero's original Dead trilogy, and in many ways, the strangest and most interesting of the three. It takes place mostly underground, in a military bunker, and it's fundamentally about the failure of institutional authority. Scientists and soldiers all trying to maintain control in a situation that can't be controlled. The standout character is Bub, a zombie played by Sherman Howard, who has been domesticated by one of the scientists. Bub has retained fragments of memory from his living life. He listens to a Walkman and responds to music. He salutes. When he's shown a razor, muscle memory takes him through the motions of shaving, and when someone he recognizes as a caregiver is killed in front of him, Bub's face does something that Romero's other zombies never do. It grieves. Bub is, by a significant margin, the most emotionally complex zombie in film history, up to that point. Nicotero worked on Day of the Dead. He was part of the team making the effects, including, presumably, the effects for Bub himself. In Season 3 of The Walking Dead, a background walker appears in one of Nicotero's directed episodes that is clearly modelled after Bub. The posture, the specific facial features, the recognisable quality of something that was once a specific kind of person. For horror fans, it lands immediately. For everyone else, it's a background walker. Both things are true at the same time, which is kind of how the best Easter eggs work. Dawn of the Dead, 1978, Romero's second entry in the trilogy, is a satire of consumerism set almost entirely in a shopping mall, and it's genuinely brilliant. A group of survivors takes over an abandoned mall and tries to build a life inside it while the world collapses outside. The walkers eventually overrun them. The film has one of the most iconic practical effects sequences in horror. A helicopter flying low over a crowd of zombies catches a walker wearing a plaid shirt, slightly overweight, reaching upward, with its rotor blade. The head goes. It's one of those moments that defines an era of filmmaking. Tom Savini created the effect. In Season 3 of The Walking Dead, a background walker appears that is wearing a plaid shirt and built to closely resemble that zombie. The airport zombie, the original. Nicotero confirmed this in an interview with CNN. We did a cameo of the airport zombie from Dawn of the Dead with the plaid shirt. Direct confirmation, no ambiguity. He put Tom Savini's most famous single effect into the background of his show as a quiet acknowledgement of what it meant. The connection to Dawn of the Dead goes deeper than a single background walker. In Season 3, Episode 5, Say the Word, the governor stages a gladiatorial fight between Merle and Martinez in the Woodbury Arena, surrounded by chained walkers. The crowd watches. It's a spectacle. People enjoy it. This is a direct visual callback to Dawn of the Dead's mall sequence, where the survivors eventually encounter bikers who come to loot the mall, and the situation devolves into something chaotic and performative and violent. Romero's point in Dawn is that given a large enough space and enough idle time, people will find ways to turn catastrophe into entertainment. The Woodbury Arena is the same argument. Nicotero has confirmed the reference. The gladiator staging, the chained walkers as props in a spectacle, the crowd engagement, it's all Dawn with a different costume. The governor's apartment has one of the more genuinely disturbing visual elements in the early seasons, a collection of aquarium tanks filled with walker heads. They float there, lit from below, still animated, unable to act. The governor watches them. It's never entirely explained, it just is. Among the heads in those tanks in Season 3 is one that Nicotero built as a tribute to Ben Gardner, the fisherman character in Jaws, 1975, whose severed head pops out of a boat hull in one of cinema's most famous jump scares. That specific face, partially decayed, eyes wide, appearing suddenly in dark water, it's one of horror's foundational images. Putting it in the governor's tank is a specific kind of humour. The joke is for people who know Jaws deeply enough to recognise a face from a single underwater jump scare. The number of people who caught this on first viewing is probably quite small. It doesn't matter, it's there. In the Season 5 premiere, No Sanctuary, the episode where Rick's group escapes Terminus, the production design team dressed the Terminus facility with various background details. One of them is a crate visible in the facility, labelled with shipping instructions to Horlicks University via Julia Carpenter. This is a Creepshow, 1982 reference, the Stephen King and George Romero anthology horror film, one of the best horror anthologies ever made, honestly. Features a segment called The Crate, in which a wooden box is discovered at a university. The university is Horlicks University. The box contains something that kills people. The crate's label, if you look closely in the film, references exactly the same shipping details that appear in the Walking Dead background. Nicotero worked in the genre world during Creepshow's era. He knows the film deeply. Dropping that crate into the Season 5 premiere, an episode full of carnage and escape, as a quiet background detail, for people who catch it, is exactly his kind of gift. John Landis's An American Werewolf in London, 1981, contains what many people consider the greatest practical effects transformation sequence in film history. Rick Baker won the first ever Academy Award for makeup for his work on that film. The wolf transformation, the Piccadilly Circus attack scene, and the grotesquely decayed ghost of Jack Goodman appearing throughout the film in increasingly decomposed states. All of it is exceptional work that defined what practical effects could do. In Season 4 of The Walking Dead, a walker appears that is built as a tribute to the distinctive decaying look of American Werewolf's undead characters, specifically the pallor, the sunken features, the particular quality of decay that Baker achieved with Jack's ghost makeup. For Nicotero, this is a tribute to a generation of effects artists who preceded him and shaped what was possible in his field. Baker, Savini, Rob Bottin, the people whose work in the late 70s and early 80s defined practical effects as an art form. Nicotero got into this business because of those men. Putting them in the background of his show is how he honours the education. Bernie Wrightson was one of the great horror illustrators, a comic artist and painter whose work defined the visual language of horror comics for decades. He co-created Swamp Thing for DC Comics, and his version of the character, a mossy, plant life-covered creature of the swamp, more tragic than monstrous, became iconic. Wrightson passed away in 2017. Before that, Nicotero had already included a walker in The Walking Dead that was built as a tribute to Wrightson's Swamp Thing. The same moss and vegetation aesthetic, the same basic visual language of a humanoid figure, consumed by organic growth. It's a tribute to an illustrator rather than a filmmaker, which makes it somewhat unusual in the context of Nicotero's other tributes. But Wrightson's work was deeply connected to horror fiction and to the visual world that the Walking Dead comic itself grew from. Kirkman was very much part of the same tradition Wrightson helped define. In the Season 6 mid-season finale, directed by Nicotero, a walker appears that is modelled after a character from The Omen, 1976, Richard Donner's supernatural horror film about a child who may be the Antichrist. Nicotero confirmed this in an Entertainment Weekly interview about that episode. The timing is darkly funny if you think about it. This is the mid-season finale, where Alexandria is overwhelmed, the walls come down, and everything the characters have built is in genuine danger of being destroyed. Nicotero chose that episode, maximum chaos, maximum carnage, the most hopeless the show had felt in a while, to hide a child Antichrist reference in the background. He tends to use the big, high viewership episodes for his best tributes, which makes a certain amount of sense, but I do enjoy that the specific movie he chose for that particular Night of Doom was a film about the literal son of Satan. Same episode. The Season 6 mid-season finale has a sequence involving thick atmospheric haze, fog and smoke filling a space as the characters try to navigate through it, that Nicotero staged partly as a tribute to John Carpenter's The Fog, 1980. The Fog is fundamentally about things emerging from obscurity: ghosts, fog, the past, dead sailors. The episode's fog sequence uses the same grammar. Things that are hidden becoming visible as the haze shifts, movement that might be threat or might be nothing, the particular dread of not being able to see clearly. Carpenter is someone Nicotero has cited as a major influence. Halloween, The Fog, The Thing. These are films that shaped Nicotero's visual sensibility early on. The Fog in particular influenced how he thinks about atmosphere, and the way horror uses the space between what you can and can't see. This is the most explicit Romero tribute in the show's entire run, and it's also the most emotionally resonant. Because Romero passed away in July 2017, and this scene came in Season 9, which aired in late 2018. In the Season 9 mid-season premiere, directed by Nicotero, there is a cemetery sequence. Walkers are rising from graves, pushing through earth, pulling themselves upright, standing among the headstones. It's the image that Night of the Living Dead introduced to the world in 1968. The foundational image of the modern zombie, the one that every subsequent zombie film is in conversation with. And Nicotero finally recreated it. He said in an interview, "I kept saying, it's Night of the Living Dead. We've never shot zombies in a cemetery before. This is the closest we're ever going to get to a George Romero homage, which is to have zombies in the cemetery." They added extra cemetery shots that weren't originally planned, because once they were in that location, everyone understood what they had. You don't get that moment twice. Romero was Kirkman's North Star and Nicotero's mentor. The cemetery scene is the show finding a way, years in, to say thank you. Season 9 is something of a tribute season for Nicotero. Beyond the Romero cemetery, he's described it as his Evil Dead season. Specifically, Evil Dead 2, 1987. The Whisperer arc creates an isolated woodland atmosphere that gave Nicotero specific opportunities to reference Sam Raimi's cabin in the woods classic. Walker designs in Season 9 include Deadite-influenced features, the specific glassy-eyed aggression, the gaping quality of the mouths, the particular brand of decayed hostility that distinguishes Deadites from standard reanimated dead, and the visual language of certain sequences, particularly the more rural, forested scenes, consciously echoes Evil Dead 2's aesthetic. Nicotero worked on Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn, through his KNB EFX company. It's one of his early career credits. Putting it into Season 9, 14 seasons into the show's run, is a personal look back. Here's where some of this started. Here's what we owe. In Season 6, a severed Walker head that appears as a prop is styled to resemble Johnny Depp. That's the whole thing, really. Director Nicotero confirmed in an Entertainment Weekly interview that he had a prop head specifically built to look like Depp. No explanation was given for why. It's just there as a severed head wearing Johnny Depp's face. Nicotero seemed quite pleased about it when he confirmed it. I don't know what to tell you. Sometimes a severed celebrity head is just a severed celebrity head. Nicotero created a tribute Walker, specifically styled after the character Johnny from Night of the Living Dead. The character whose teasing remark to his sister, "They're coming to get you, Barbara," became one of the most quoted lines in horror history. The tribute was filmed in black and white. That detail alone is beautiful, a black and white Walker walking through a full-colour show, as if the original film had somehow crossed over into the world the show built. It didn't make the final cut of the episode, Season 5 or 6. Accounts vary on the specific episode. Nicotero posted it on social media instead, writing something to the effect of, "The tribute Walker that hit the cutting room floor. Johnny from the one and only Night of the Living Dead. After the fact I realised I should have used him in the premiere, and he would have been in black and white. Damn." The regret in that post is genuine. Even the Easter eggs that don't make it have their own histories. When production wrapped on Season 7, Nicotero produced a rap video, a tradition in film and television production, featuring a tribute Walker designed after Dr. Tongue from Day of the Dead. Dr. Tongue is one of the most recognisable effects achievements in the film. A green-skinned, long-tongued zombie who appears in the opening sequence, and whose look is immediately and distinctively Romero-era. The KNB team built the Dr. Tongue tribute in full prosthetics. It's remarkable work, a proper recreation, not a rough approximation. It appeared in a production video rather than the show itself, which means casual viewers wouldn't encounter it at all. But that's almost the purest form of what Nicotero does with these tributes. He built a full prosthetic Romero zombie just because the season was ending, and it felt like the right thing to do. Nobody required it, he just did it. There's something genuinely charming about that. Edgar Wright's Shaun of the Dead, 2004, didn't just reinvigorate zombie comedy, it helped make zombie horror safe for mainstream audiences at a time when the genre had been largely dormant for a decade. Both Kirkman and Nicotero have cited it as part of the contemporary landscape that Walking Dead entered into. A background walker in one episode is styled as a gentle tribute to Shaun of the Dead's visual language. The specific look of the film's zombies, which was a deliberately slightly comedic, slightly everyday kind of undead. The tribute is soft enough that it reads as an acknowledgement rather than a recreation. Shaun of the Dead came out 6 years before The Walking Dead premiered. It was part of the reason there was an audience ready for a serious zombie drama. And I think Nicotero knew that including a Shaun tribute is the show quietly thanking a film that helped prepare people for what it was going to be. The genre ecology that made Walking Dead possible starts somewhere around that flat in North London. The tribute Walker tradition extends into the spin-off era. In The Walking Dead, Daryl Dixon, Nicotero directed sequences and created Walker designs that included at least one tribute to Army of Darkness, 1992, Sam Raimi's third Evil Dead film, the one where Ash goes back in time to medieval England and fights the Deadites. Nicotero shared a cut version of this on social media, a scene featuring the Army of Darkness-inspired Walker that didn't make the final episode. The tradition continues. The shop is still open, a small postscript to Egg 39, because it's worth dwelling on how that Season 9 cemetery sequence came to be fully realised. The additional shots in the cemetery, the ones that made the sequence feel complete, that gave it the full Night of the Living Dead quality Nicotero was reaching for, were not originally planned. The production went back and added them after someone realised what they had. That decision, to go back, to do the scene properly, to give the Romero tribute the space it needed, says something about the priorities of the people making the show at that point. The Season 9 era was a significant creative change for The Walking Dead. Rick's departure, new showrunner, a genuine attempt to reimagine what the series could be. Opening that era with a proper, fully realised Romero cemetery sequence was a statement. Here is where all of this comes from. Here is what we owe. Let's stay with Bub for a moment longer, because the character deserves it. What made Bub remarkable in Day of the Dead is the implication he carries. If Bub can relearn, if muscle memory survives death, if emotional recognition survives death, if something that functions like grief survives death, then what exactly are the walkers in Romero's world? The film never answers this cleanly. It lets the question sit, and that ambiguity is one of the things that makes Day of the Dead philosophically richer than a lot of horror films. The Walking Dead inherited this question. Throughout its run, the show returns to moments where walkers seem to do something that looks like recognition, seem to respond to a particular voice, or congregate around a particular place, or demonstrate something that looks like a vestige of who they were. The show generally doesn't commit to a clear answer. It leaves the possibility open the way Romero left it open with Bub. When Nicotero put a Bub tribute in the background of Season 3, he was gesturing toward all of that. Not just saying, "I love this movie," though he does, but connecting the two shows shared philosophical uncertainty. Both are interested in the same question. Both are willing to let it remain a question. The Dawn of the Dead helicopter effect, the airport zombie losing his head to the rotor blade, was created by Tom Savini under considerable creative and practical constraints. The shot required significant engineering, close coordination between the camera, the effects team, and the actor, and it was achieved practically in a single take that nobody was sure would work until it worked. Nicotero was trained by Savini. He absorbed not just technique from Savini, but a philosophy of practical effects. The insistence on doing things for real, on building the thing rather than faking it, on trusting that a real effect will read differently on screen than a simulated one. The Walking Dead's commitment to practical effects for its walker makeup, building the faces, the prosthetics, the specific decay at each stage, comes directly from this tradition. The show could have used cheaper digital work throughout, and nobody would have complained much. It chose not to, because Nicotero was taught that the real thing matters. Having the airport zombie walk in the background of Season 3 is a tribute to a specific effect, yes, but it's also a tribute to the person who taught Nicotero why that kind of effect is worth the effort. The context for the Season 9 cemetery sequence matters. George Romero passed away on July 16, 2017, from lung cancer at the age of 77. He had been in Toronto filming a new project. The news hit the horror community with genuine grief. Romero wasn't just an influence on the genre, he was the reason the genre existed in its modern form. Nicotero and Kirkman both publicly mourned him. Nicotero had worked for him. Kirkman had built his career in his shadow. The Walking Dead owes its existence in the most direct possible way to a man who died in the summer of 2017. Season 9 premiered in October 2018. The cemetery sequence aired in February 2019 in the mid-season premiere. It was made in the year following Romero's death by people who were grieving him, in a genre that he invented, standing walkers rising from cemetery earth, in a shot that looks like it belongs in Night of the Living Dead, in a show that would not exist without Night of the Living Dead. It's a funeral rite as much as a production decision. The show burying its debt and its grief in images. Taking a step back from the individual tributes, what Nicotero built across 11 seasons is, in aggregate, a hidden curriculum of horror film history embedded inside a mainstream television drama. If you watch The Walking Dead as a horror film enthusiast, specifically a fan of the practical effects era of the 70s and 80s, it's a different show from the one general audiences experienced. There's a running conversation with Romero, Carpenter, Raimi, Landis, Baker. There's a genealogy of effects work being honoured and extended. There's a man who was taught something by extraordinary people and used every opportunity available to him to say thank you. Most viewers caught maybe one or two of these tributes, some caught none, and that's fine. The show works perfectly well without knowing any of this. But for the people who did notice, The Walking Dead operated as a kind of living tribute to the art form it emerged from. A zombie show that loved zombies, made by someone who loved them more than almost anyone alive. Now let's talk about the things the writers planted years before they needed them. There are pieces of foreshadowing in this show that span multiple seasons, that required the writers to know what they were building toward long before they built it, and that hit with a very specific kind of impact when you go back and find them after the fact. Some of these I find genuinely remarkable, not just as Easter eggs, but as evidence of a writer's room that took its own continuity seriously. We touched on this in section 4, but it deserves the full version here. In the season 1 finale, Dr. Jenna lets Rick's group into the CDC. Rick is overwhelmed with relief and gratitude. He thanks Jenna. He's vulnerable in a way he almost never allows himself to be. Jenna responds, "The day will come when you won't be." It registers as dark comfort, the words of a man who has already decided to die, who has looked at all the data and concluded that gratitude in this world is a short-term condition. Rick hears it as the kind of bleak warning that comes from someone who has given up. He disagrees. He keeps going. 6 years later, Season 7 opens on the aftermath of Negan's introduction. Glenn and Abraham are dead. Rick is kneeling in the road at dawn, holding an axe in a state of complete psychological dissolution. Negan takes him on a walk through the woods and methodically dismantles whatever is left of Rick's sense of self. The episode is titled, "The Day Will Come When You Won't Be." The full phrase pulled out of Jenna's lips in Season 1, dropped as a single line and left there for 6 years, became the title of the episode that broke the show's central character. Someone in the writer's room held on to that line, held on to it through multiple showrunners, through the prison and the governor and the cannibals and the saviors, and used it at exactly the right moment. That's a kind of craft that I find genuinely impressive, the patience of it. After the prison falls in the mid-season, 4 battle and the survivors are scattered, Beth and Daryl are on foot, trying to make sense of what just happened. Beth walks through a scene. A roadside cluster of bodies, Walker remains, the aftermath of whatever happened there before they arrived. Next to the bodies, a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. Negan doesn't appear in the show for 2 more full seasons. In Season 4, he doesn't even have a name in this context. There's no reason for a viewer to understand what that bat means. But it's there, in the dirt, waiting. Whether it's literally Lucille or just a visual plant, a prop that looks like what Lucille will look like when we finally see her. The effect is the same. Someone on the production team in Season 4 put a barbed wire bat next to a pile of bodies, knowing what it would mean later, knowing that some comic readers in the audience would see it and feel a specific dread, knowing that everyone else would eventually come back to this moment and understand. In Season 5, when Rick's group joins Noah to check on his old community and finds it completely destroyed, they move through the wreckage. Glenn finds a baseball bat on the ground and picks it up. He carries it through the episode. This is the episode that also includes the brutal revolving door sequence, where several characters die in rapid succession. It's already a heavy episode. The baseball bat is a background detail in the middle of everything else. In Season 7, Negan kills Glenn with a baseball bat. Glenn carried the murder weapon that would eventually kill him, 2 seasons before it killed him. He picked it up from the ground and walked with it. I don't know if this was intentional or if it was the kind of coincidence that production teams sometimes find themselves in possession of and decide not to argue with, but either way, it's there. Glenn with a baseball bat, moving through a destroyed community, a season and a half before a baseball bat destroys him. In Season 6, when Rick's group raids a Saviour outpost in Not Tomorrow Yet, Glenn is the one who breaks in through a window. In a back room, he finds a wall of Polaroid photographs. Each photo shows a person, different people, different scenes, with their heads caved in by a blunt weapon. Glenn is horrified. He stares at them. He can barely look away. The camera holds on his face for a moment. In Season 7, after Negan kills Glenn, a saviour takes a Polaroid photograph of Glenn's body and pins it to a wall in Daryl's cell. The same documentation, the same wall tradition. Glenn on the wall, like all the others. The show made Glenn look at photographs of his own future. He didn't know. He couldn't have known. And that specific dramatic irony, the audience watching Glenn's face as he looks at images that rhyme exactly with what will happen to him, is one of the cruelest pieces of foreshadowing the show ever produced. In the best possible way. In Season 6's episode East, Carl is in the Alexandria Armory looking at the guns that were taken from the Saviour's compound in an earlier raid. He picks up a pistol. On the handle, he sees a carving, barbed wire coiled around what looks like a bat. A Saviour has carved Lucille onto their personal weapon. It's a marking of loyalty, of identity, of who their leader is and what he represents. Carl turns the gun over in his hand, looks at it, doesn't know what to make of it. For comic readers watching in 2016, this was the loudest possible signal. The show was weeks away from the Season 6 finale, which ended on the cliffhanger of Negan's arrival. The barbed wire carving on the gun is the show pointing directly at what's coming, for the people who could read the sign. Before Morgan returns to the main show in the Season 5 finale, a street sign in Alexandria reads, Morgan Street. This is visible in Season 5 before Morgan has arrived, before the show has formally reintroduced him as a character. Whether this was planted intentionally, production finding a street name that worked as a quiet forecast, or whether it was a piece of location detail that the writers chose to let stand once they noticed it, Morgan does eventually arrive and live in Alexandria, on a street that bore his name before he got there. In Season 5, there's a sequence in which Abraham's group is overwhelmed by a walker herd during a highway battle. A scene specifically focuses on Abraham using a large firearm to beat a walker's head in, swinging repeatedly, connecting with the skull, hitting it again and again. The staging is deliberate. The camera frames it as an act of brute, emphatic, almost personal violence rather than simple necessity. Abraham is hitting harder and longer than he needs to. In Season 7, Negan kills Abraham with a baseball bat, hitting repeatedly, connecting, more than necessary. Abraham's death is, in one reading, his own method of killing turned back on him by a worse man. The show staged a preview of it 2 seasons in advance, in a scene that looked like Abraham being powerful, and is, on reflection, a rehearsal for the opposite. After Alpha's death in Season 10, Beta, the Whisperer's second-in-command, played by Ryan Hurst, is shown in quiet grief, holding a note that reads, "These 2 eyes see one truth." It's a personal item from Beta's previous life as a musician, a cryptic piece of philosophy from his pre-apocalypse identity. 2 episodes later, Daryl kills Beta by driving both of his knives simultaneously into Beta's eyes. Both eyes, one for each. Beta's note predicted the nature of his own death. As he dies, the show gives him a vision of himself being embraced by walkers rather than fighting them, accepting his truth, whatever that meant to him. The note said 2 eyes see one truth. His death gave him 2 eyes and a truth. In Season 9's What Comes After, Rick's final episode on the main show, he is standing on a bridge, badly injured, trying to spare a herd of walkers from reaching the communities. He blows up the bridge. His last spoken words just before the explosion are, "I found you." In Season 1's pilot episode, Days Gone By, when Morgan first revives Rick from unconsciousness and makes contact, when Rick understands that there are other people still alive, what Rick says is, "I found you." The first words of hope in the entire series. The last words before the explosion that appears to kill him. Both in the voice of Andrew Lincoln, 11 years apart. The same 3 words carrying completely opposite emotional weight. Someone kept that line for 9 seasons. The Season 8 premiere, Mercy, the show's 100th episode, takes place partly at an abandoned gas station. There is a walker present that is visibly older than most walkers in the show. The features more aged, the decomposition different. The actress is the same one who played the little girl walker that Rick shoots in the very opening of the pilot episode. She was roughly 10 years old during Season 1 filming. By Season 8, she was 17. The in-universe suggestion is that walkers age. The girl from the opening scene, the first walker Rick ever killed, is still out there, still walking, 8 seasons later. Older. It's a profound little detail for the show's 100th episode. Here is where we started. Here is someone from that beginning, grown up, still in the world. The Season 8 premiere contains a flash-forward sequence, an imagined future, an older Rick in a peaceful Alexandria, waking up in bed to birdsong and morning light. Next to him is a vase of flowers. In the Season 1 pilot, Rick wakes up in a hospital bed with flowers next to him. The flowers are wilted because no one has come to replace them, because the world has ended. But the composition is the same. Man in bed, morning light, flowers. The 100th episode mirror is exact, the same visual, the same basic element. The dead wilted flowers from the start of the apocalypse and the fresh living flowers from an imagined future of peace, framed identically, 74 episodes apart. This one is lighter in spirit than what surrounds it, and a good palate cleanser. When Tara finds the governor in Season 4, post-Woodbury, wandering, diminished, he is lying on the ground outside a building. His eye patch is on. He looks like what he is, a man who used to run something and doesn't anymore. Behind his head as he lies there is a pillow. The pillow has a parrot printed on it. The parrot is positioned precisely over the governor's shoulder. Multiple characters in the show have made jokes about the governor's eye patch making him look like a pirate. The production team found a parrot pillow and placed it perfectly so that the governor is completing the costume. He's lying on his own punchline. It's a deliberate prop placement. Someone went looking for a parrot pillow. Someone put it exactly where it needed to be. That's quite a bit of effort for one visual gag. In the opening credits of certain seasons, the imagery placed next to Sarah Wayne Callie's name, Laurie Grimes, includes visual elements that fans have read as foreshadowing her death by gunshot. The production team has never officially confirmed this. It may be intentional. It may be the product of people who know what happened and are finding patterns. But it's been documented enough and discussed enough that it's part of the show's Easter egg conversation. The gentler version of this observation is just the credits were made by people who knew the show's trajectory. What they chose to put next to each actor's name was a choice. Those choices may have had more information embedded in them than they appeared to. In Season 4, there is a moment where Daryl carries the unconscious Beth through the woods after a walker encounter. The framing of the shot is almost bridal. He's holding her against his chest, moving through the trees, her head against his shoulder. In Season 5, Beth dies at Grady Memorial Hospital. Daryl carries her body out of the building in almost the exact same position, the same carry, the same framing, the same basic composition. What was protection in Season 4 is grief in Season 5, staged identically. The first carry, in retrospect, was a rehearsal for the second, and people who had seen Season 4 closely enough, watching Season 5 with the memory of it, had that specific experience of recognition, the images layering over each other at exactly the wrong moment. In the Season 5 premiere, when Gareth's Terminus group has Rick's people at their most vulnerable, Rick makes a very specific promise. He describes the weapons he buried outside Terminus before going in, and he lists them precisely, including a machete with a red handle. He tells Gareth, clearly and without drama, that he is going to use that machete to kill him. Gareth treats this as bravado. The Terminus people let Rick live for the moment and move on. 3 episodes later, in 4 Walls and a Roof, Rick tracks down Gareth and his group inside the church, and he kills Gareth with the red-handled machete, the one he described, the one he promised. The show keeps its word. Rick kept his word. The specific detail, not just our machete, but a machete with a red handle, described in advance, the same one confirmed, is one of the most complete promise and delivery loops in the series run. And it works because of the specificity. If Rick had said, "I'll kill you with a weapon," it would mean nothing. Saying, "I'll kill you with this specific machete with a red handle," and then doing exactly that is a different kind of storytelling. Something worth adding to the day will come analysis. The title of the Season 7 premiere was specifically chosen by the showrunner as a deliberate callback to Jenna's Season 1 line. It wasn't found after the fact. The production team searched their own history for the right title and retrieved those words. This means the Season 1 line wasn't just coincidentally available for later use. The writers knew, when making Season 7, what Jenna had said in Season 1. They went back and found it. They matched it deliberately. The foreshadowing is real, not an accident that became foreshadowing in retrospect, but a genuine, long-range decision by writers who treated their own back catalogue as source material. That distinction changes what the show is. A show that accidentally foreshadows things is lucky. A show that deliberately seeds things years in advance and then retrieves them at the right moment is something else. It's treating its own history as a library, as a place to go looking when you need the right words. The "I found you" callback deserves the additional context of what both moments actually mean. In Season 1, when Rick says the phrase, it's the first moment of genuine human connection after weeks of isolation, trauma, and uncertainty. He woke up alone. He found an empty house. He found a dead world. And then he found Morgan, proof that other people survived. That survival is possible. That the loneliness is not absolute. "I found you" in Season 1 means you exist. Someone is out there. In Season 9, just before the bridge explosion, Rick says the same phrase into the empty air, reaching toward Michonne and the people he loves. He has found them, not located them, not reunited with them, but found them in the sense that matters. He knows who they are. He knows what he's protecting. He knows what he's leaving. "I found you" in Season 9 means you are the reason. Everything I've done and everything I'm about to do is because you exist and I found you. Same phrase, the first hope and the last act, 11 years apart. The red-handled machete payoff in Season 5 is worth examining for what it says about Rick as a character and the show's construction of him. Rick is not a person who makes idle threats. When he tells Gareth specifically and in detail that he is going to kill him with that machete, it isn't bravado. It's a statement of fact delivered in a moment of stress. And he means it the way he means everything, completely. The show spent a lot of time in its early seasons establishing that Rick's word means something, that the authority he has over the group is moral as well as practical, that it comes from his consistency and his honesty about what he's going to do. The machete payoff proves the argument. Rick said it, Rick did it. With that specific weapon, as described, Gareth underestimated him. The red handle was both a promise and a proof. Let's look at the full picture of Glenn's foreshadowing, because no single piece of it captures how complete it is. The barbed wire bat in Season 4, lying next to the bodies in the road. Glenn picking up a bat at Noah's community in Season 5 and carrying it through the episode. The Polaroid wall in Season 6, where Glenn looks at photographs of people killed with a blunt weapon. The barbed wire carving on the gun in Season 6. Taken individually, Each of these is a single note. Taken together, across 3 seasons, they form an argument. The show was preparing Glenn for his death, the way a composer prepares a theme, introducing the motif early, returning to it, developing it, until it's so familiar that when the full statement arrives, you feel it in your whole body. Glenn's death in season 7 is the resolution of a 3-season chord. The show had been teaching you to hear it. And here's a fun detail. This section is for the long-run callbacks. The things that require the show to have been paying attention to itself across seasons, which it wasn't always great at, but when it was, the results were lovely. Maggie's office at Hilltop has a wall, visible in the background of many scenes, easy to overlook because it's never directly addressed in dialogue, covered in artwork, portraits and images of the people she has lost. Glenn, Herschel, Beth. It's a permanent piece of production design. It's always there when the scene is set in her office. The show never calls attention to it, never has a character comment on it, never uses it as a plot point. It's just true. Maggie Green put pictures of the people she buried on her wall, and the audience can see it if they look. And the production team maintained it as she accumulated more losses. Small things like this are how a fictional space becomes a real place. The room has a history. The history is visible if you pay attention. When Rick's group arrives at the CDC in the season 1 finale, there is a brief fleeting moment where Carol's discomfort in the confined corridors is visible. It's a single beat, never emphasized, never explained. She's uncomfortable underground, in close spaces, and then the scene moves on. In season 10, Carol's claustrophobia is specifically mentioned as a character trait. It informs her decisions in certain confined sequences, and it's treated as established information. The show held that detail for 9 seasons. One moment in season 1, barely noticeable, never dwelt on, being the foundation for a character element used in season 10. That requires the kind of long-term character tracking that large writing rooms often lose over the course of a decade-long production, and the fact that it survived is a testament to someone keeping good notes. The bicycle walker, Hannah, is technically still in King County after Rick leaves. She was left in the park. Rick returned to shoot her, but didn't take her anywhere. She just stops moving. When Morgan returns to King County, in season 3's Clear, the town is further along in its decay. Walkers have been walking for 3 years at this point. The show has, in various moments and details, suggested that walkers do decompose over time. They're getting slower, more degraded, more structurally compromised. The implication is that Hannah is somewhere in that degraded park, having gone further. And the show reinforced this with Egg 56, the season 8 gas station walker, played by the older actress. Walkers age, the world doesn't stop, even for the dead. When Father Gabriel is first introduced in season 5, his white clerical collar is pristine. It's clean, bright, perfectly maintained. It's the last remnant of the life he lived before. The parish priest who locked his congregation out during the outbreak and survived alone while they died, then carried that guilt for years. As the seasons progress, the collar gets progressively dirtier, greyer, more worn, more frayed. The costume department maintained this as a deliberate arc. Gabriel's identity, his past, his self-image as a man of God are all embedded in that collar. And as he becomes more integrated into the community, more willing to fight, more changed by the world, the collar reflects it. By the later seasons, it's barely recognizable as white. The character arc is visible in the costume if you track it. Rick's Colt Python revolver is one of the show's most enduring symbolic props. It's his signature weapon, a 6-shot revolver, heavy, slow to reload, associated with law enforcement and the world before. The show periodically tracks the bullet count with unusual care. In the pilot, Rick fires shots and the show accounts for how many he has left. In scenes of extreme stress, the Python being empty, Rick having to find other means, having to adapt, carries weight because the show established how full it was. The revolver is, in a sense, symbolic of Rick's connection to the old world and its rules. A lawman's weapon. The further the world collapses, the more meaningful it becomes, that he's still using it, and the show understood that enough to track the bullets. Herschel Green uses scripture throughout his time on the show, specific verses chosen carefully that reflect the situation of the episode he's in. His faith is never naive or performative. It's a framework he thinks through rather than a set of answers he falls back on. After his death, Maggie's relationship with those specific verses continues. She references particular things her father taught her. The show maintains that Herschel's faith had specific content, and that content was transmitted, that Maggie carries not just the memory of him, but the particular shape of what he believed. For 11 seasons, casual viewers of The Walking Dead saw Don't Open Dead Inside as set dressing, atmospheric graffiti that established the world. If you watched the Oath webisode series, you knew that a specific person wrote it, a nurse named Karina, who was trying to protect the surviving patients as the hospital fell. The main show never explains it. The supplementary material rewards people who go looking. This has been the show's consistent approach to its own lore, enough in the text to work as a self-contained experience, more available for people who want more. Michonne's katana is one of the most immediately iconic elements of The Walking Dead's visual identity. She arrives with it, she defines herself through it. It's barely explained. The katana's origins, where it came from, how she came to have it, are touched on in supplementary material and later in the show itself, but for a long time it was simply part of her. The show's restraint on this was, I think, correct. The katana means what it means because Michonne uses it with intention. Its history is secondary to what it is in her hands. When Enid is introduced in Season 5, she's seen writing JSS on small surfaces, scratching it into things, writing it on paper. It's a detail that appears a few times without explanation. In Season 6, the episode JSS reveals that it stands for Just Survive Somehow, the mantra Enid developed while surviving alone after her parents died. It's her personal condensed philosophy, the bare minimum reduced to 3 letters, but JSS had been placed in the backgrounds of certain Season 5 scenes before it was explained. Graffitied or scratched on walls, visible if you were looking. The explanation was planted before the question was asked. The show trusted that some viewers would notice the letters accumulating and wonder, and that the Season 6 answer would reward that noticing. Morgan's weapon history is one of the most carefully maintained visual character arcs in the show. He starts Season 1 with practical tools, whatever is available. He returns in Season 3, clear, with a sharpened spear and a compound that reads as the world of a man who has gone entirely inward. He comes back in Season 5 to 6 with a fighting staff, trained in Aikido by Eastman, practicing a philosophy of non-violence. The staff is not just a weapon, it's the physical expression of the thing Eastman taught him. It's the shape of his intention when he's trying not to kill. When Morgan abandons the staff and picks up a gun in later seasons, the visual language is legible. The philosophy has failed, or he has failed it, or the world has not allowed it. The show tracked this without ever making it explicit. It trusted the image to carry the argument. After Negan's capture and imprisonment in Alexandria in Season 9, he is shown writing letters. The show keeps this quiet, its background detail rather than plot. But for readers of the later Walking Dead comics, the imprisoned Negan writing to Rick and the slow complication of their relationship from that correspondence is exactly the arc the comics developed. The show maintained this thread across seasons without dramatizing it. The letters are there. The relationship is changing. The show let it happen in the margins. In the comics, Judith Grimes dies as an infant during the prison battle. She doesn't survive. That's the timeline the comic maintains. The TV show let her live, and then let her grow up, and then in later seasons gave her Rick's sheriff hat. The hat passes from Rick to Carl, and eventually to Judith. By the time of The Ones Who Live, Judith is wearing it as a teenager, the third Grimes to own it. It's a family heirloom in a world where family heirlooms should not logically exist. For comic readers, Judith's very existence is an Easter egg. She's a living divergence, the show's most consistent reminder that this is a different story from the one Kirkman told, running alongside it, making different choices. The Season 8 premiere, Mercy, was the show's 100th episode, and the production treated it accordingly. Beyond the flash-forwards and the flower vase callback already mentioned, the episode contains multiple deliberate visual echoes of Season 1. The colour palette, the specific framing of certain shots, the way Rick moves through a space. These aren't references explained in dialogue. They're language, the show speaking to its own history and images, for the people who had been watching long enough to recognise the grammar. Father Gabriel's collar deserves a bit more space because the arc it traces is one of the more complete character journeys in the later seasons. Gabriel starts as a man who is broken by his own cowardice. He barricaded himself in his church while his congregation died outside, and who is consequently trusted by no one in Rick's group. His pristine collar in Season 5 is the armour of someone who has not yet been forced to reckon with who he actually is. As Gabriel is gradually drawn into the group's survival activities, as he learns to fight, as he makes morally complex decisions, as he operates in the grey space that a zombie apocalypse requires, the collar degrades alongside him. The symbolic reading is available. He is losing his purity and gaining his humanity, which are not the same thing. By the final seasons, Gabriel has become a capable and committed member of the community, and his collar is a grey rag. The trade seems, on balance, worth it. The production team tracked that journey in the costume, quietly, for seasons. JSS, Just Survive Somehow, is the philosophy of someone who has pared everything down to the irreducible minimum. It doesn't say be brave or find hope or protect the people you love. It says somehow, as in, however you have to, whatever it takes, just survive. The graffiti appearing before the explanation arrives means that the world already contains Enid's philosophy before we understand it. Other people have found the same truth, or Enid has been moving through the world, writing it on walls without knowing if anyone reads it. Either way, the phrase is an echo before it's an explanation, and the phrase itself is, on reflection, a fair description of what most of the characters in The Walking Dead are doing at any given moment. Just Survive Somehow. Enid put it into 3 letters, and the show scratched it into the background. Since we're on the topic of the show noticing its own details, let's go through some of the more specific production Easter eggs, the things hidden in props and set dressing that required either a keen eye or a paused frame to catch. This one is genuinely remarkable and has been confirmed by a member of the show's production crew. Every episode, the props department adjusts the clocks and watches on set so that the time displayed corresponds to the season and episode number being filmed. If you're watching Season 5, Episode 3, the clocks in the background are set to 5:03. Almost nobody catches this in real-time viewing. You'd need to be specifically pausing on clocks and cross-referencing them with episode numbers. But it's there, across the whole run of the show, maintained by the props team, as a recurring in-joke, or a piece of hidden precision. I find this kind of thing quietly extraordinary. It serves no narrative function. No viewer needs it to follow the story. It's just an Easter egg for the extremely determined, maintained indefinitely by people who took enough pride in their work to add unnecessary layers of meaning to it. In the final season, when Eugene is involved in a confrontation over a missing person and gives an address, 1634 Racine, this is the exact address written on the matchbook in Brian De Palma's The Untouchables, 1987. The matchbook that leads Elliot Ness to a key piece of the investigation. Whether this is a deliberate Untouchables reference or a coincidence that someone in the research community noticed and documented, I can't tell you with certainty, but 1634 Racine is a specific enough detail that it's hard to dismiss as accidental. And it is very Eugene somehow to be the character associated with the Untouchables Easter egg. The overeducated man in the zombie apocalypse, slipping a 1987 Brian De Palma reference into a tense confrontation feels right. The Untouchables is a film about people trying to maintain the rule of law in a world where the institutions of law have been corrupted. There's a thematic parallel available if you want it. Starting in Season 5, walkers begin appearing with the letter W carved into their foreheads. The explanation doesn't come until Season 6. A group called the Wolves has been using the carving to mark walkers that they've set loose as weapons against communities. The markings were seeded a full season before the Wolves were introduced. For an entire season, the carved W is visible in background walkers, something to notice, something to wonder about, something that accumulates until the explanation arrives. This is a fairly classic long-run setup and payoff, and the show executed it well. The Wolves were properly introduced as a threat, partly because the audience had been building unease about their walkers for months before knowing who was behind it. When the Wolves are revealed, their philosophy is extreme, but internally coherent. They believe the dead have inherited the earth, and that anyone trying to build communities against them is fighting against the natural order. The W carved into walkers is essentially territory marking. The Wolves claiming the dead as their own, a philosophical statement as much as a tactical one. Understanding that, the carved foreheads become something more than just creepy background detail. They're a manifesto written in flesh, planted a season early, waiting for someone to read it. Expanding on the brief mention in Section 7. Maggie's office at Hilltop has artwork on its walls that depicts the specific people she has lost. Glenn is there, his portrait recognisable. Herschel is there, Beth is there. The artwork changes as the show progresses, and Maggie accumulates more grief. It's not reset between seasons. The wall tracks her losses. Someone in the production design team was maintaining that wall across seasons, updating it, keeping it current with the character's story. It's the kind of detail that makes a long-running show feel like it has a memory, which is what a long-running show should feel like, and which The Walking Dead managed inconsistently, but genuinely, when it managed it at all. Dale Horvath's RV is one of the show's most quietly persistent symbolic objects. It appears from Season 1 through Season 4, long after Dale himself has died. The vehicle persists. The show uses the RV's condition as a background signal for the group's psychological state. When it's running, there's still something resembling forward motion, the possibility of leaving, the logic of survival in progress. When it breaks down, the group is stuck, emotionally and narratively, as well as literally. The Season 2 Prairie Breakdown has this quality. The RV failing while the group waits on Herschel's farm, unable to move, unwilling to confront what's ahead. Dale gave the group the RV and then left them with it. The show understood that objects outlive people and carry their meaning forward. It's one of those cases where the best writing is the quietest. Nobody ever says, the RV represents our hope. But you feel it anyway when the engine finally dies. Various pieces of graffiti around Alexandria reference events and people from earlier in the show and foreshadow what's coming. Silence the Whisperers appears in-world on walls before the Season 10 credits made it visible. You can find it in background shots of Alexandria scenes in the lead up to that arc. Some of the graffiti references locations the group visited and lost, people writing on walls as a way of commemorating. Some of it is warnings. Some of it is community record keeping. The production design team put genuine thought into what a community's walls would say after years of trying to rebuild. In multiple background shots across different seasons, something very close to the Walking Dead comic book appears among survivors' possessions, copies of graphic novels or comics that, in their general design and colouring, are clearly meant to evoke Kirkman's work. This creates a slightly meta condition. In this universe, Kirkman's zombie comic exists. The events of the show are not the events of the comic. They run in parallel, different stories in the same world. Survivors reading about a zombie apocalypse, while living through a zombie apocalypse is a very specific kind of dark humour, and the production team occasionally made it visible. Let's revisit this one with the detail it deserves. The Season 1 pilot opens with Rick in a hospital room, in bed, waking up slowly, morning light filtering in, a vase of flowers next to him. The flowers are wilted and brown. No one has come to replace them, because there is no one left to come. The Season 8 premiere, the 100th episode, contains a flash-forward of an older Rick waking up in bed in Alexandria. Morning light, a vase of flowers next to him. The flowers are fresh and alive. The composition is intentionally identical. Same basic framing, same element, man in bed, flowers, morning. What changes is the state of the flowers, from death to life, from the absolute nadir of the world to an imagined future of peace. That future may not be real. The flash-forward has a dreamlike quality throughout the episode, and its relationship to actual events is ambiguous. But it's the show's 100th episode, choosing to mirror its first image and invert it. Whatever the world did to Rick Grimes, someone wanted to show that the dead flowers at the beginning had a living counterpart somewhere ahead. The spray-painted warning from the Season 1 hospital became one of the show's most enduring visual icons. It appeared on merchandise, posters, fan art, the opening credits. It defined a visual shorthand for the show's world. And across later seasons, the production design team echoed it. Different locations, different handwriting, similar warnings, dead inside. Variations on the original phrase. Messages written in haste by people who knew what was on the other side of the door. The iconography spread through the world. Of the show, the way useful warnings spread in genuine emergencies, people found something that worked and repeated it. The Season 1 hospital door isn't a one-off. It's the first iteration of a language that the show's world developed over time. Now let's talk about the famous faces that ended up in this show, both alive and in various states of undead, because there are a few of these, and they range from genuinely moving to just quite funny. In Season 5, the episode What Happened and What's Going On handles Tyrese's death after he's bitten during a rescue mission. The episode is unusual in structure. Its interior, fragmented, deeply personal. Tyrese drifts between consciousness and hallucination as he bleeds out in the back of a car, his mind presenting him with visions of people he's lost. One of those visions is a radio broadcast, a calm, even voice speaking from somewhere far away, reporting on atrocities unfolding across the world. A voice that knows the scale of what has happened and is, somehow, still speaking clearly about it. That voice is Andrew Lincoln's. The man who plays Rick Grimes is British, and when he's not performing an American accent, he sounds nothing like Rick. Lincoln built Rick's voice with a lot of care. It isn't a generic American accent. It's specifically placed in King County, Georgia, and he maintained it across 11 seasons without slipping. His natural speaking voice, by contrast, is warm, measured, slightly formal in register. The real voice underneath the one you spent a decade watching. The choice to have Rick narrate Tyrese's passage out of the world is not accidental. Tyrese was part of Rick's community. He was part of Rick's family, in the way that the show used that word. Having Rick's actual voice, not the American lawman, but the real voice underneath, provide the last sounds. Tyrese hears is a gift from the show to a character who deserved one. The performance within the performance. The man behind the character, briefly made audible. Rick stripped back to Andrew. Scott Ian is the rhythm guitarist and co-founder of Anthrax, one of the defining bands of the American heavy metal and thrash metal scene since the early 1980s. He is also, apparently, a committed Walking Dead fan. In Season 5's Remember, as Rick's group is first integrating into Alexandria, a background Alexandrian is played by Scott Ian. He's dressed as a civilian, moving through the community, and if you know who he is, you recognise him. If you don't, he's a background resident. This was a production invitation. Ian was given a day on set as a fan, who happens to be famous for something unrelated to acting. It's the kind of cameo that rewards people who follow Scott Ian's public life, as well as the show, which is probably a smaller group than either individual fan base, but a very specific kind of overlap. The Season 4 episode Still, the bottle episode where Beth and Daryl are sheltering in an abandoned house and spending most of the episode just talking, uses a song called Up the Wolves by the Mountain Goats as part of its emotional register. Up the Wolves. And in Season 5 and 6, the villain faction that the show builds toward is called the Wolves. Music selections on The Walking Dead were generally thoughtful. Whether this particular song was chosen partly for its title, with the Wolves arc in development or mind, is not confirmed. But the choice of Up the Wolves for an episode where Daryl talks about his past and Beth talks about surviving, in a season where the Wolves are already being seeded through the W. Walker markings, is either a very specific coincidence or a very specific choice. We mentioned this in Section 5 in the context of Nicotero's tribute work, but it deserves its own full moment here. In Season 6, a severed prop head, a Walker head, used as background set dressing, is styled to resemble Johnny Depp, not vaguely, specifically. Nicotero confirmed in an Entertainment Weekly interview that he requested the head be made to look like Depp. The reason given in the interview is essentially no reason at all. It seemed like a thing to do, so Nicotero did it. He's an executive producer on a massive television show, and he occasionally used that position to request that prop heads be built to resemble specific famous people. There is something deeply funny about this that I can't quite articulate. Tom Savini, the effects legend who mentored Nicotero, who created the original Dawn of the Dead and Friday the 13th makeup effects, who is essentially responsible for Nicotero's entire career trajectory, is reported to have appeared as a zombie extra in the early seasons of The Walking Dead. I want to be honest with you, this one is harder to definitively confirm. It's been reported and discussed, and the connection between Savini and Nicotero is well documented enough that it would be surprising if it hadn't happened at some point. But the specific episode and scene have been harder to pin down conclusively. What I can say with confidence is that Nicotero has consistently honoured his mentor in the work, and that honouring goes deeper than a single background appearance. Savini pioneered the idea that horror effects should be specific, not generic blood, but this wound in this location, suggesting this cause. Not generic zombie, but this person, at this stage of death, having been through this specific experience. The detail is what creates the horror, because detail is what creates belief. That's what Savini taught, and that philosophy is present in virtually every frame of The Walking Dead that involves a walker. The KNB EFX team applied that specificity to every extra in every crowd scene across hundreds of episodes. Whether or not Savini himself walked in the herd, he's there in the work, in every prosthetic, in every carefully staged face, consistently. The Walking Dead's composer Bear McCreary built the show's musical identity from the ground up, and he did it in a way that functions as its own kind of Easter egg for careful listeners. His approach was to write specific recurring themes for specific characters, not just mood music, but actual melodic identities that follow people across seasons and return, transformed at key moments. Rick's theme appears in various forms throughout the series and returns, altered in moments of major change. The theme associated with Herschel's farm has been identified in later seasons in orchestrations that are noticeably slower and more fragmented, as if the music itself is grieving the place and the people who live there. When Beth dies, the specific musical phrase that played over her most hopeful moments returns as something much quieter and more broken. McCreary has talked about this in interviews, the deliberate construction of a musical continuity that mirrors the show's emotional continuity. Most viewers experience it as atmosphere. Careful listeners experience it as a long-form conversation the score is having with the show's own history. The music remembers things even when the narrative moves on. Now let's talk about the later seasons and the expanding universe, because the Easter egg tradition didn't stop when the main show wound down. If anything, having more productions to hide things in and more history to reference made it richer. The Commonwealth, the large stratified community introduced in the show's final seasons, is one of the most faithfully adapted arcs from the Walking Dead comics. Pamela Milton, the stadium and amphitheatre settings, the class system that the community has rebuilt, the way that familiar social hierarchies reasserted themselves over time, all of it tracks Kirkman's original design with unusual care. For readers of the later comics, the Commonwealth arc was the most recognisable part of the final seasons. The emotional beats were familiar even through the narrative adjustments. The show was saying, in its last act, here is the place, in the source material we most wanted to honour. Here is the version of this community we were always going to eventually build. In the very first season of The Walking Dead, Rick briefly sees a helicopter flying over Atlanta. It's one of his first pieces of evidence that the outside world might still have functional infrastructure. That somewhere, something is still operating. He follows it. He loses it. He doesn't mention it much afterward. The helicopter's origin is not explained for years. It becomes, for a while, one of those background mysteries, real enough to be noticed, unexplained enough to fuel speculation. In Season 9, it's revealed that the helicopter belongs to the Civic Republic Military, the CRM, a large and secretive organisation that operates independently of the communities Rick's group has been building. The CRM takes Rick away at the end of his final episode in the main series. In The Ones Who Live, the 2024 miniseries following Rick and Michonne, the CRM's full story is explored. But the important Easter egg is this: the helicopter in Season 1 was always the CRM. The organisation that would eventually take Rick away had been circling overhead since the very beginning, watching long before anyone knew what to call it. Season 1. Rick sees a helicopter and wonders if there's hope left in the world. The helicopter is from an organisation that will take him from his family 9 years later. The hope was real. The complications were just not visible yet. There's something that I find genuinely striking about this particular Easter egg, or long game plant really, which is the sheer time frame of it. 9 seasons, 9 years of the show existing in the world. That helicopter appears in Season 1, disappears for years, reappears briefly in later seasons, and then finally becomes a central plot element in Season 9. The writers who seeded it in Season 1 may not have known exactly what it would become, but they left it there, open, meaningful in retrospect, for however long it took for the story to come back to it. That's a specific kind of trust in your own universe, planting something without knowing when it will grow. In Rick's final episode on the main series, his last act before the bridge explosion is to throw something into the river. The gesture is small, almost private, a message cast out into the current, reaching towards something he can't see. This echoes Rick's Season 1 radio broadcasts, the CB transmissions he sent out from his police cruiser, driving through an empty world, hoping someone was listening. This is Rick Grimes, is anybody out there, cast into the air, into the silence, hoping for a response. Rick's entire arc is, at some level, the story of a man who keeps sending messages into silence and eventually being heard. The bridge moment is the last iteration of the same gesture. Season 1 radio, Season 9 river. Different medium, identical impulse. In The Ones Who Live, the story of Rick's years with the CRM is gradually revealed, and it connects directly back to moments and details from the main series in ways that recontextualize what we already know. The specific nature of the CRM helicopter, its markings, its route, what it was doing over Atlanta in Season 1, is among the threads the miniseries picks up. For viewers who remembered the Season 1 helicopter, watching The Ones Who Live has the quality of a very long-delayed answer arriving. Here's what that was. Here's who those people are. Here's what they wanted and why they were watching. The show built a 9-year mystery into its first season without announcing it, and eventually told you what it was. The Whisperers, who wear walker skin and walk among the dead, the major villains of seasons 9 and 10, are a direct philosophical outgrowth of a survival technique Rick improvised in season 1. In the pilot's second episode, Guts, Rick and Glenn cover themselves in walker viscera and walk through the Atlanta herd. The smell of the dead masks their human scent. The walkers ignore them. It works. This was Rick's improvised solution for a single emergency. The Whisperers took that one-episode survival hack and built a world view around it. A philosophy, a community structure, a way of life. They stopped pretending to be human. They chose to be the thing that survives. Rick's season 1 ingenuity, stretched across a decade of show, became the foundation of a villain faction. The show remembered where the idea came from. The Walking Dead, Dead City, the Maggie and Negan spin-off set in a Walker-overrun Manhattan, draws its emotional architecture from an arc in the later Walking Dead comics. The dynamic between Maggie and Negan in the spin-off, a woman who hates the man she's been forced to rely on, a man who knows he deserves her hatred and keeps showing up anyway, directly mirrors the Fear the Hunter's emotional template from the comics, where necessity creates alliances between people who have not forgiven each other and may never. It's not a direct adaptation. The plots are different, the setting's different, but the feeling, the specific weight of two people trapped together by circumstances neither chose, is Kirkman's, and the spin-off knew it. The Walking Dead's final season, the last run of episodes before the show concluded, contains deliberate visual and dialogue callbacks to the deaths of Glenn, Abraham, Herschel, Carl, and others. These aren't flashbacks, they're echoes, staging choices and dialogue lines that reference specific moments from those deaths for viewers who remember them. Characters in the final season occasionally move through spaces or deliver lines that, for long-term viewers, land differently because of what they're rhyming with. The show in its final act was doing what long-running shows should do in their endings, honouring what it cost, acknowledging the specific weight of the people who weren't there anymore. Adding to the observation about the Whisperers and Season 1, the philosophical distance between Rick's improvisation in Guts and the Whisperers' entire way of life is enormous, but the physical technique is identical. Rick covered himself in dead flesh as a temporary necessity. He was horrified by it. He gagged on it. He rushed through the Atlanta streets as fast as he could because being inside that smell and that texture was unbearable. It was survival, not ideology. The Whisperers wear dead flesh every day. They sleep in it. They have structured their community around the practice, their family relationships, their identity. They are not horrified. They find people who are horrified by it to be weak and confused. The gap between Rick's reaction in Season 1 and the Whisperers in Season 9 is the gap between the apocalypse as a temporary crisis and the apocalypse as a permanent condition. Rick treated it as an emergency. The Whisperers were born into it or surrendered to it entirely. They don't remember a world where this would be unthinkable. That's 11 seasons of world building and a character contrast. Since we mentioned Fear's clean title sequence, the relationship between the two shows' title designs has a quiet continuity to it that makes the broader universe feel coherent. The main show's title is decaying continuously across all 11 seasons. Fear's title starts fresh and decays on its own timeline, tracking a different chronological position in the apocalypse. If you watch both in order, Fear first as the outbreak begins, then the main series, the titles form a visual timeline. Clean becomes damaged, becomes ruined. That's a piece of universe building that operates at the level of graphic design rather than narrative. Nobody needed it. It enriches nothing that wouldn't work without it. It's just there for the people who notice, as evidence that whoever made these choices was thinking about the whole thing rather than just the individual parts. And here's where we land, 3 more for the end. In the Walking Dead comics, Judith Grimes dies as an infant. She never grows up. She never gets the hat. In the television universe, Judith lives. She grows up in Alexandria, and at some point, through Carl and then to her, she acquires Rick's sheriff hat, the tan, battered, deeply symbolic hat that defined Rick's visual identity across 11 seasons, the hat that was as much a character as the man wearing it. By the time of The Ones Who Live, Judith is a teenager wearing it. The third Grimes to have owned it, in a world where almost nothing persists and almost everything gets destroyed. That hat has been passed down. It's become a family heirloom in a world that was not supposed to allow for heirlooms. For anyone who started watching in 2010 and watched Rick put that hat on Carl and wondered what would become of it, there's your answer. It's on Judith. It's still there. The Walking Dead's pilot is called Days Gone By. It's a title with a double meaning baked in. Gone by as in past tense, time elapsed, things that no longer exist, and goodbye as a farewell, a leave-taking, an ending. Both meanings are active simultaneously. The world that existed before the outbreak is both gone by and being said goodbye to. The title is a compressed elegy for everything the pilot is documenting the end of. Throughout the series, that double meaning recurs in various forms, characters saying goodbye in different ways, the past both gone and present in memory. In the finale of the main series, the visual language of the opening shots, a road, a man alone, the specific quality of silence in an empty landscape, deliberately echoes the pilot's opening. The show ended where it started. The title of that starting point contained both the ending and the beginning in its 2 syllables. Gone by, goodbye. The Walking Dead series finale returns in its closing images to something quiet, human, and open. The visual register, the light, the composition, the tone, matches the emotional register of the very first frames of Season 1. Not a direct visual quote, not a specific callback that requires you to remember a particular shot, but a structural loop. The show that started with one man alone in a broken world ends with an image that carries the same quiet weight. Something has survived. Something still has to be figured out. The uncertainty is the same. And that's the last Easter egg in a sense, not hidden in a background prop or a piece of graffiti, hidden in the show's own shape, the way it closes itself, the way it honours where it started, the way it suggests that the journey from the first episode to the last has its own coherence, even through everything that happened in between. 177 episodes, 11 seasons, hundreds of characters, and somewhere in all of it, 100 things worth going back to find. And that's the last one. 100 Easter eggs, hidden details, tribute walkers, long-run callbacks, and production in-jokes buried inside one of the longest-running shows in cable television history. There are more, honestly. There are always more. Fans are still finding things in the backgrounds of episodes that aired 10 years ago. The show was made by a very large number of people over a very long time, and many of those people were horror nerds and comic book readers and obsessive continuity trackers who took real pleasure in hiding things for other obsessive people to find. I hope at least some of this was new, or at least newly interesting. And if you're still awake, well, there are more of these videos on the channel. The spin-offs have their own layers, the comics have their own history. There's a lot of ground left to cover, but for now, thanks for being here. Good night. A thought to close this out properly? The Walking Dead is not a show that was made by people who were coasting, not in its best years anyway. The tribute walkers alone, the sheer number of them, the specificity, the sustained commitment to hiding something for a very small group of people who would understand it, suggest a production team that cared about the work beyond what the ratings required. The foreshadowing that holds across seasons suggests writers who respected their own history and trusted their audience to remember. The character details maintained across a decade, a collar getting dirtier, a clock set to an episode number, a prop team adjusting watch faces before every single shoot, suggest crew members who brought a level of craft to background details that had no financial justification. All of that is worth knowing about. All of that is part of what the show was. There is something particular about an Easter egg that nobody discovers for years. The barbed wire bat lying next to bodies in season 4 before Negan was introduced, before most of the television audience had any reason to know what it meant, that existed in the background of that episode for 2 years before it was understood. What does it mean for something to be placed with intention and not noticed? It still meant what it meant. The meaning was there in the image, whether anyone was reading it or not. The writers who put it there knew. The props team knew. And then the episode aired and the world moved on, and the bat just sat there in the dirt of a screenshot, waiting. This is, in a small way, the thing that distinguishes craft from performance. Performance requires an audience, craft doesn't. You can make something carefully, even if nobody checks whether it was done carefully. The clock hands set to the episode number, maintained across hundreds of episodes, are visible to almost nobody. They still got changed. Every episode. That's the hidden layer of The Walking Dead, and it's the thing worth sleeping on. Somewhere in every episode, someone was doing something nobody asked them to do, because the work deserved it. That's enough. Sleep well. There is a specific pleasure in rewatching The Walking Dead knowing some of this material. Not the pleasure of superiority. I know what this means and the characters don't, but the quieter pleasure of recognition. Seeing the show, noticing itself, seeing the care that was put into the fabric of it, the way each season was in conversation with the ones before it. The Polaroid wall, for instance. Glenn's face as he stares at those photographs. On a first watch, you're watching a man confronting evidence of how violent the saviors are. On a rewatch, you know he's looking at photographs that rhyme exactly with what's about to happen to him, and the shot of his face becomes something else entirely. The show looking at Glenn, looking at his own future, all 3 layers visible at once. That kind of experience, where a scene that worked one way becomes something different with more information, is one of the things that distinguishes a well-made television show from a well-produced one. Production quality you can achieve by spending money. The other thing requires intention, continuity, and a genuine belief that the audience will come back. The Walking Dead at its best believed that. The tribute walkers exist because Nicotero believed that someone would pause and squint and say, "Wait, is that Bub?" The day will come when you won't be title exists because someone believed a line from season 1 was worth saving for 6 years. The clocks being set to the episode number exist because someone in the props department decided to do it anyway, probably knowing that almost nobody would ever check. All of it is aimed at a viewer who is paying attention, who has been paying attention for a long time, who loves the show enough to go looking. If you're here at this hour, listening to someone talk about Walking Dead Easter eggs in the dark, that's you, and the show made things for you. Good night.